Welcome to episode 3 of the Edgework podcast alongside Dennis Bernstein, David Pagnotta. I'm Zack Bodenstein, and I'm proud of you both. Not as much DB, but more Dave, because he wore sunscreen. There's no sunburn coming back from Florida. DB's more used to it, so I think he's kind of got that regimen going. But Dave, the Florida sun must have treated you well, and then coming back home, you missed the minus 30 wind chills, but I think you missed that Florida sun.
I do. The Italian olive skin helps with the sun. Certainly, it's like a 60-degree swing Celsius from Toronto to Fort Lauderdale. So I'm glad I missed that polar vortex crap that was going on. But look, Florida was great. It was an awesome time. The All-Star weekend, I guess, was a lot of fun. I know we'll get into this, but I know the broadcast side is, but if you're going to this thing, it's all about the experience. You know, checking out the different activations they have in place. Fanfare was absolutely awesome. You got to see different recordings and live segments and things like that. We did some stuff as well, and fans hyping up all over the place and everything. Different activities. You have the Hall of Fame if you want to check out all the trophies. Upper Deck doing some cool stuff and some signings, player stuff, like all of that is what it's about from a fan side of things. You go to it just to say you went to the actual skills or the game, but all the fanfare surrounding all weekend, I mean, that's just what it was about. And to see these kids and even just regular normal fans of all ages checking out all these fun things and getting free prizes and contests and watching the mascots beat each other up and all kinds of fun. Like that's really what it is from a fan side of things. You've got to experience it. From the league side, it's a big schmooze fest for the league. It sponsors the teams, all their clients, all that stuff. So they like it. The fans love it when they're there. Broadcast, holy crap, they got to work on that.
The karma for posting a picture of me on the lounge chair at 80 degrees, like right before the skills competition, it came back to bite me the next day because the sky got dark. It's 25-mile-an-hour winds, rip current warnings. Like it started raining, so like God said, "Okay, slow down, bro. You ain't that cool." Right? So that was it. So the fanfare wound up getting canceled the next day. But look, here's the thing: it's an event, so it's an on-site event. So 80% of the stuff won't translate to somebody that's watching in Winnipeg. Right? That's the challenge. That's the issue. If you go, you have a great time. There's parties, the activities Dave talked about. The fanfare is really cool. The weather would hold out. But yeah, there has to be something done because you can't have a 3-hour skills competition. I know it's a television program, and I know ESPN has the rights, right? So, but there's something that really needs to be reimagined with respect to the event, Zach, because if you do that in Toronto next season, the criticism might be a little louder than it was in Fort Lauderdale.
You can have a 3-hour broadcast, just not that 3-hour broadcast.
Yeah,
like you can't have PK Subban trying to act and telling Mitch Marner, "I got you, bro," 19 times. Like you gotta practice that. You gotta eat. It's not just throwing it. It's not easy to broadcast and to be on air and to try to entertain. So I mean, a lot of it's with the league. A lot of it was with ESPN as well, and the broadcast element. But they need to find a way to figure it out and to add the entertainment value to it. And spreading it. Like the golf competition was awesome. And the dunk tank stuff was cool, but don't spread it out. Don't okay, we're doing one hole now, and then 20 minutes later we'll show it again, and then it's gotta flow. It's gotta be done properly. Spreading it out, I don't know. I didn't understand that.
And so what PK needs a co-host partner. He can't. He's not a host. He's a personality. And so to let the flow go, to tee up him, I get it. It would be funny, but that's why he says something 18 because he's not a host. He might work on it 5 years from now, but get Buccigross out of the studio, let him co-host with him on the ice. That's a professional broadcaster. PK's learning he's learning the trade as he goes. So I think that's part of it is that you have somebody that needs to organize that and get in and out and get quickly and sees when things are fading to move on from there.
With all due respect to Bucci and Weeksy and Amber and Elliott and everybody, we're hockey guys. You want to have a host? Hire an entertainment host.
Yeah.
Bring on somebody
100%.
that knows what they're doing from the entertainment side of things.
Yeah.
Sports entertainment's different. Not everybody's Stephen A. Not everybody likes Stephen A. either, but but you know what I mean? Like, if you want to enhance this, you got to spend a little extra, get some Hollywood type people that know what they're doing on the entertainment side, and then have that cushion the broadcast with Bucci and Elliott and everybody else that encompasses it for Sportsnet side and for ESPN side. It's entertainment. It's the first freaking word in E.
Well, thinking about that, this just came to my mind. What about getting local celebrities based on the host city to kind of take part in that? And being in Toronto next year, Dave, so many opportunities for that with some big name Toronto guys. I know Justin Bieber said that he wanted to take part in the festivities. There you go. Whether you like him or hate him, there's a big name, and you got some options there. DB, we talked about. Yeah, it was in LA recently, was it not?
16.
16,
17, 18, whatever the 100 year.
Yeah. Either way, they've got these opportunities to make the most of it. I like what they're doing with the themes and how they kind of use these skills competitions to the city's advantage when it comes to themes. But to get some bigger names, Dave, is a really good point, because that's what's ultimately going to draw audiences. And you can be the best broadcaster in the world, but not many people know who you are. You're not entertaining in that sense that people are looking for All-Star Weekend. Might not be the best course of action. So I do like that. DB, overall take on that weekend, anything that kind of stood out to you? Because as Dave was talking about, it is more about being there and the fan experience, but was there anything that caught your eye that you might want to tell people to encourage them to go to future All-Star games?
Oh, well, you're seeing part of history, and you saw, like, is there value in seeing Sid and Ovi on the ice passing to each other? Or Ovi's kid there. There's so many different moments, and you get up close and personal. If you get on the red carpet and your kid's 6 years old and he's a big Alexander Barkov fan and you got an autograph from him, fine. It's going to be crazy in Toronto next year, so I don't know about that. Like, I assume it's going to be downtown, Maple Leaf Square, and there's a lot of stuff's going to be happening there. But I go one time, and I get it. Yeah. It's not for everybody. It's like we're going in next weekend to the Stadium Series game in Carolina. Right, Carolina, Washington. And somebody in Seattle may not care about that, but it's not about you, the person in Seattle. Like, if it's in your city, go. Or make a trip and go. Now, it's going to be prohibitive going to Toronto next year. Hotels are going to be crazy, all this other stuff. But pick a city, pick a place. If it's, I don't know, if you live in New York and at some point UBS is going to be the place to have the All-Star game. Go one time. It's worth the money. And to be honest with you, the secondary market, it wasn't expensive to get in at least in Fort Lauderdale. Next year, tickets.
It will be next year.
Yeah, exactly. So maybe the unicorn is Toronto in the All-Star game. But in other cities, go. We always have a good time because it's only ancillary things around the game and the event itself that makes the weekend. Because remember, it's All-Star weekend. And you might run into a player walking down. We saw it all the time. Walking down A18, it was all, guys watching Chandler Stevenson. And nobody really knows who Chandler Stevenson was in South Florida. But if you're a Vegas Golden Knights fan, you roll up on Chandler, it's a great weekend. So you can probably extract one really cool memory out of going for the weekend. So I absolutely advocate for it. Yeah, it's not perfect. And yeah, the All-Star Game's really an avid going back, Zach, really 100 years to the MLB All-Star Game when Babe Ruth was there. So it's something that needs to be, like I mentioned, reinvented, reimagined. But for a fan opportunity to go and do all those different stuff and get, like, I remember when I went to the Winter Classic back in Boston, way back in the day in 2010, they had Upper Deck. They did trading cards. So me and my wife put on the gear and she hit me over the head with a stick and we got a trading card from that. So even that's a cool memory of these events. Yeah. So, and it's what they call tentpole events. And that's the idea, to expand the reach of the game. And I will tell you, if you take the time and expense to go to one of these events, you will enjoy yourself without question.
100%. You build up, especially as a kid, you're building up core memories in that regard. Right. And it's not just like it's if you're a huge hockey fan, like a big hockey nerd, you get to you see people. Now, for me, it's a little different now because I work with a lot of these guys. But if you're a huge fan, Friedman's running around, and you have Bucci and those guys running around, and you have the Missing Curfew boys all over the place, and you have Chicklets guys.
Pagnotta's running around. Don't forget Dave Pagnotta.
Yeah. But you see Biz and Witt and all those guys, and they have events. Like, it's not just – it's everything that encompasses the weekend. And it's the fanfare and it's the celebrity aspect and it's go see your favorite podcast. Come watch us. Maybe we'll do something next year. Like all of those kinds of things. Like those are the big takeaways from it. And Zach, you're right. Like they have to up the entertainment value. You've got to spend, like the league doesn't make money on these types of events.
Right.
Like, because again, it's big schmooze fest and all that. And I mean, they don't lose money either. They're not, Gary's not gonna make that happen, but they're not making significant money on, if anything, on any of these things, because everything is getting, you have the local tourism boards coughing up money and sponsors and all that stuff, but it's to enhance the experience. Next year, they have to spend for this big takeaway. The All-Star Weekend and NHL awards, from a broadcast standpoint, sucks. And it sucked for a long time, and they know it. So try to enhance it, but do it right. Don't penny pinch and all that crap. Like, you've got to go big for the next few years here. And Zach, exactly to your point, man, it's about the entertainment value on the broadcast side. Going there, DB, and I echo that. Do it. Find 1 year, maybe not next year or whatever. Like, find a year, go with your buddies, go with your family, go with your kids. You won't regret it. You absolutely won't. It's a hell of an experience.
Just watching the AHL All-Star game, because these guys have something to play for. They have something to prove. Them being there is a spectacle, and that's ultimately what this whole show is. So for them to put on the display that they did, and I don't know if any of you guys caught it, but they were really trying, and they were being creative. And the whole concept of it, the way they run it, the different skills that they have, the relay, it's a lot of fun. So maybe they could take a page there. Again, the NHL stuff, it got kind of gimmicky. I understand it, though. If they do it well, though, Dave, I think it can be really effective.
Do the draft again.
Yes, 100%.
Do the draft, and like right before you want to make this a 3-hour freaking broadcast. Do the draft. Have Bieber host the damn thing, or Drake, or that doesn't even have to be a guy from Toronto. Who gives a crap? Just some high level celebrity, A-lister. Have them host, and the draft is done. Boom. All right, get on your sides. We're starting the skills competition now. Like, do that kind of stuff. All right, for the game the next day, we have it. We have our teams, 6 in the middle, who's starting first, like what, something. Like go back to that fun stuff and add the entertainment value into it. Like, I'm all for that. Like the draft, like even the players want the draft back. So like just add these fun little things and stop trying so hard to make things entertaining. Do it right. Like what's that? KISS. Keep it simple, stupid. Yeah. Do that.
Yeah, there's a lot of potential there. You get the best players in the world in one spot. How do you market that? Because marketing, that's a whole other issue, and that's something the NHL has struggled with. They've got the product, Dave, but marketing it and getting it in the public eye and making it a whole thing it's been a struggle for them.
I've been, sometimes people get in their own way because they think they know what they're doing. A lot of people think they know what they're doing, but they don't. And like I was in Florida, we recorded this pod like 2 weeks prior to All-Star Weekend. I was there. I was on the, remember that? I was on the beach. It was great. But there were no signs anywhere down Fort Lauderdale Boulevard. Nothing up Los Olas in the not only in the touristy places, but also look like it was a week leading up to it. Like pimp the crap out of it. Like I get it, Toronto's going to be different, but you have to be able to hype this up, and you got to market this thing better. They know that. Just do it now.
Yeah, everybody's been critical about All-Star Weekend, and they have opportunities to improve. And even the ideas that Dave threw out there, I love that. The draft, get right into the game, sticks in the middle, something like that to kind of bring back the roots of hockey. And every player I've talked to in junior hockey, especially, they love talking about going back to the roots. It's a cliche, but there's an opportunity there that kind of makes something happen and make it more fun.
Yeah. And you could do fun pond hockey stuff if you want in Toronto. Like the fanfare is probably going to be in the convention center, so it'll be indoors. You'll have all the fun stuff. It's just the ambiance of the ocean and the palm trees behind you. Like in Florida, it's not there, but who gives a crap? You're still going to experience all that stuff. But you have opportunities to do some fun little things, snowball fights with pucks, like whatever. Just make it fun. Get Will Ferrell in there dressed as Elf, like whipping those snowballs or something. Like just something. Like fun little stupidy things, but it's entertaining and it adds value, and like those kinds of things are going to be fun. I want to see that. It's entertainment. We got to be entertained, and if you're not entertained, like most of us haven't been watching these things, there's a problem. So you got to fix it.
Yeah, I totally agree. They have the best players in the world. Let's make it a thing. Let's make it fun. And, ultimately it is for the fans. So let's make it what the fans want. So that's pretty much our recap on All-Star Weekend. Glad you guys are back safely, had a great time, and tons of potential for next year in Toronto. Now it is trade season, and we're getting closer to the trade deadline now. We are less than a month out. So it's time to start evaluating and saying which teams are going to be aggressive buyers, which teams should maximize on their assets in terms of a selling perspective. DB, aggressive buyers right now. There are teams on the bubble. There are opportunities now that people are saying the West is wide open if Colorado can't kind of find something here. In your mind, is there anybody that you think should be an aggressive buyer that hasn't been already? Because we haven't seen many big trades other than Bo, but are you looking at any team and saying this team needs to pounce on a deal right now?
Yeah, I'm looking at two teams, Zach. One would be Calgary, because I think the last game, Jacob Pelletier, who's just recalled, was in the top 6. And they're missing half the goals they had last season. Because when Johnny and Matthew left town, that was 82 goals last season. And the replacements, Huberdeau, who's got 10 goals, and Kadri, who's been great, he's got, 20-something. They're missing about 40 goals. They need a top 6 winger. They need a top 6 scorer. The other team, also in the West, in the Central, would be Minnesota. Right? So, look, Kevin Fiala leads, and that was a big loss. But the trickle-down effect, and that's the same thing with a guy like Johnny Gaudreau, who's a great facilitator. It affects other guys on the team. Lindholm's not the same player, goal-scoring-wise. Right, so that affects that. And same thing in Minnesota, because Kevin Fiala leaves. Ryan Hartman's got 5 goals, right? And Sir Boldy's been great. He got the extension. They need goal scoring. They're 20th in scoring coming out of the break. That's not good enough to make the playoffs. They're in a position right now, but those are two teams that, from an offensive standpoint, need to make big deals and get a scoring winger, a top 6 guy on the wing to help their offense, because their offense is middling right now, and I just don't think either one of those teams have a good enough offense. Even if they get in, Zach, they're going to get knocked out in one round.
Yeah, I'm looking east. You handled the West because you're the LA guy. I'll take the East here in Toronto. Not the Leafs, although I do think they need to do a couple things. Carolina, all of a sudden you've got $7 million extra in LTIR space that you can play with. I think this is an opportunity. Your window's wide open. Go for it. Absolutely go for it. And I think they're looking. I know they're looking. Whether they make that big splash or not, it's going to come down to the opportunity cost. They don't want to give too many futures away. But if you win, well, it's justified. So, and all this, they won't spend the money. They don't want to spend the money, blah, blah, blah. They don't want, Tom Dundon didn't want to spend the money to be mediocre. Is he going to spend the money now and spend a few extra million to push his team over the edge? Yeah. It's just, the problem is it's the prospects. It's the top kids. They're not trading Seth Jarvis. They're not trading Neckash. They're not giving away, I always screw up his name, but the young goalie who's going to be their number one. Thank you. So that's going to take me a long time to figure out, by the way. I've screwed it up 9 times when we've mentioned him so far this season. So I just give up. But they're not trading those 3 guys. So if they have other pieces, I think that'll play a factor for them. But they have 10 million? Because Jake Gardner's done. Max, unfortunately, is done for the year. They've got a crap ton of cap space to utilize because of the LTIR overage. So I think this is an opportunity for them to go all in. Do it. I think the other team, it's a toss-up for me between also in that division, Jersey and the Rangers. I don't know if Jersey needs to go all in right now because they've got a pretty young core. And I think they should go all in for Timo Meier because that would work. But I think the New York Rangers are another team that they've got a good opportunity here. If they can add a couple pieces with Shesterkin in net, with a solid decor like that, and the depth that they have up front, and guys that play playoff type hockey, like Kreider, we all knew he was going to fall off from 50 goals. But
sure.
Can he be a playoff producer like he usually is? You add a couple other pieces and other elements there. I think this is a team that could do a lot of damage and squeeze out. And it might be, them Carolina at the end, because Boston, it's in the second round, because we know Boston's going to roll. And if they get Chychrun, like Dennis was the first guy to report this over the weekend, that Boston's been pushing hard for Jacob Chychrun. If they can pull that off, see, listen to that. Those are the sirens going, yup, Chikrin, Boston, let's go. I think honestly that if the Rangers and Hurricanes make a big splash over the trade deadline, it might give them an opportunity to meet potentially the Bruins in that Eastern final.
Yeah, on the Rangers, Zach, here's the thing. If you look at their right side offense, like Jimmy VC, 9 goals. Barclay Goodrow, 9 goals. Capo Caco, 9 goals. And here's the worst one. You want to talk about a bad trade, Chris Drury? Sammy Blais for Pavel Buchnevich. Since the trade, do you know how many goals Sammy Blais has for the Rangers? None. He has not scored a goal as a New York Ranger. I think it's 70 games. And Pavel Buchnevich last year had 30 goals. I think he scored 15. That would be the guy on the right side that would help them win. Like, what a terrible trade. And I know why they did it, and they said that he was soft, and I think back in the day, David Quinn called Pavel Mr. Happy. But that's a terrible trade. Like, right now, they'd be a way better team. So now, when you hear about Patrick Kane on the right side, yeah, that's why. 27 goals from 4 right wingers. You're not winning the cup. It's just like Carolina. They got to trade for a left winger. Patches is gone. Bernsey has done great in Carolina. Great ad for this team. But again, it's you don't have enough offense. Like, I look at that, I'm like, wow, your top right winger is not. And they even had to move Kreider over to the right side for a couple of games. But that's, again, a team. It's about offense. You know, we talk about, there's more scoring in this league. But once you get to the playoffs, there's not that much scoring. So I think a team like the Rangers, offensively on the right side, they got to do something.
A lot of opportunities for teams to add. And you mentioned Buchnevich. He played so well with Zibanejad, whether it was 5-on-5 or on the PK. So losing him obviously has been tough. But there are guys out there, and you mentioned 2 wingers in Buchnevich and Pacioretty, who I know Buchnevich is going back a few years, but they're done. There are guys in there that on the market, I should say, that are available and can really help teams. You know, whether it's a matter of cap space or not. Dave actually touched on something else I wanted to talk about, and that was LTIR space, because now Pacioretty gives Carolina a ton of flexibility. Yeah. Are there any teams, Dave, that you're looking at other than Carolina that could use LTIR to their advantage?
Vegas. Like they've been very coy in how they've been putting the messaging across with respect to Mark Stone's future, immediate future. He had back surgery. And Cassidy, the head coach, said, well, we hope if we make the playoffs, he's back then. So if they need to, you throw him and his $9.5 million on LTIR, you use that as overage. All of a sudden, you have $9.5 million extra in your cap to play with. Now, not only do them and Carolina shift the balance of the trade market, because all of a sudden they can add impact-type players, you don't necessarily have to bring in a guy and force a team to retain 50% of a deal.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So Patrick Kane, for example, Jonathan Taves, for example, out of Chicago. Both of those teams would probably be fishing around to see if they can make something happen. So instead of having Chicago forcing them to eat half of that contract, $2-3 million, so 10, like Vegas, for example, $10.5 million. Let's use Patrick Kane as the example. Okay, you retain what? $2-3 million instead of 5. Like all of a sudden, that changes. It changes the cost.
Mm-hmm.
It makes it a little easier for Chicago as well, and from Vegas' standpoint. Well, we just need to make one big impact type of ad. I mean, unless a couple things fall into place. Like I think that's something they're going to explore. And I'm really looking at, like, Vegas may screw a lot of teams' plans up, and they love to do that. So it wouldn't shock me if they do something like that. And it may not necessarily, like, it could also be Ryan O'Reilly or Vladdy Tarasenko. Those guys are $7.5 million. All of a sudden, you do that, you still have $2 million to play with for another potential acquisition. Luke Shen at $850, for example, on the back end. Like, I think Vegas has an opportunity to be very creative, and we know that their owner does not give a crap about spending money.
Mm-hmm.
He'll toss it out like Dennis does at the clubs. Like he will just throw money out like crazy.
And Bill Foley, same level.
Yep. So if you have an opportunity to add to your team to enhance your chances of winning a Stanley Cup, I think you do it. And if I'm Foley, I'm giving McCrimmon the green light. Go for it. Go make some big splashes. Okay. Get some big ads.
But there's one difference between Carolina and Vegas. The hole was created by Max Pacioretty, Bezer, Tarasenko. You can add another winger. I don't think Team Lamar, but Vegas, you're not getting another Mark Stone. He's a unicorn. That's the difference.
Well,
they can't replace that guy. He's the heart and soul guy.
I agree with you.
The guy into the fight.
I agree with you, but to counter that, Patches is done until next season. You read the tea leaves, it looks like Stoner's coming back in the playoffs. So not only, like, now you're adding to the mix. So now come playoff time, well, first of all, you got to make it. And with Carolina and, with Calgary and Edmonton battling, and that division is going to be tight. But you got to make it. So you got to add a guy to help you solidify a playoff position. And then all of a sudden, Stone comes back like Nick Kucherov, and you're rolling. So I think
surgery. Slow down. Back surgery. This is a chronic issue with his back. Now he has back surgery. You just come back in 3 months and be Mark Stone? No, I'm sorry.
Shea Weber,
be in the room.
Shea Weber, Montreal Canadiens, Stanley Cup final, that run.
I don't buy it.
It may screw his future. But
I don't buy it. Nope.
Okay.
Nope. He hasn't been 100% for a long time. He's been gunning through these games. That's the challenge. Even in the short term, Dave, they can't replace that player. But here's the thing: you watched that game last night in Nashville. Will Carrier is having a great season. If Will Carrier and Michael Amadio are going to score big goals for this team down the stretch, they're going to make the playoffs. But here's the one thing: the one guy we haven't talked about in Vegas. Where's Jack Eichel? Can you wake up? I don't think he scored a goal in 9 games. He's got to wake up. He's got to lead this guy, and that's the difference between right now Mark Stone and Jack Eichel. One's a way better leader than the other, and when the team really needs him, this is when you're going to see. This is why you're paying Jack Eichel $10 million, Zach. Like to do right now, when the big guy goes out, you got to step up and not lead by example, but score goals and be the effective player that they thought they got when they made that trade. That's the guy that's going to make them make the playoffs. Not the trade that replaces Mark Stone. It's up to Jack Eichel right now. This is his moment. Like, you want to talk about leadership? This is it, Jack. Get up, start playing way better, because you've been invisible the last couple of weeks. And if I'm a Vegas Golden Knights, I'm scared of that.
Yep, he's been solid this season up until the last 10 games. He's got 1 goal and 1 assist in his last 10 games. Now, is it because of Mark Stone? If it's because of Mark Stone, well, crap, you got a whole other level of problems, because that means he's not a driver. Like, he's not the guy making people better. He's the complementary piece. And if Jack Eichel is the complementary piece at that cap hit, I mean, he's not the type of player we thought he was. And I don't think he's this kind of player. Like, I think he can be that force, that driving force, but he's got to light a fire under his own ass. And you can't count on other guys. So maybe you bring in Tarasenko or Kane, for example, and that helps him. But long term, he's got to get going. 1 goal and 1 assist in your last 10 games, like 0 points in 6.
Nope.
Jack, man, like I've been on your side for a while, but I thought I had a lighter here. But let's go. It's time to get going.
You're absolutely right. I mean, Eichel's got to be better, and DB talked about the trickle down effect earlier. That's kind of happening in Vegas now. No Stone. We've seen Eichel struggle. Chandler Stevenson has taken a little bit of a step back, but they are getting these diamonds in the rough with Paul Cotter, Will Carrier. Phil Kessel has looked a lot better. They played yesterday in Nashville as we record this. He looked really good yesterday. So if they can find something in these value players, that's great. But at the end of the day, your best players have to be your best players. And they are getting healthier. White Cloud came back last game too. Theodore's played a few. So let's see if Vegas can kind of get something rolling here. We just talked about the buyers, DB. How about the sellers? There are opportunities for teams to maximize their assets in terms of what they have to sell. We have been talking about, the same teams. Chychrun's a guy, Timo Meyer's a guy. But who do you feel needs to capitalize the most on returns in terms of, springboarding a rebuild?
I saw the moving vans, a video of the moving vans backing up to the arena in St. Louis. That's the team that needs to sell. I know that Doug Armstrong's a real loyal guy, and a lot of these guys won a couple of them in 2019. But that game before the break, when they were up 2-0 in Winnipeg early in the third, and they proceeded to give up 3 straight goals and lose the game 3-2, that was it. Check, please. You're out. You're not making the playoffs. I mean, Dave could talk about the possibility of maybe O'Reilly staying there, but if I'm the Army, this team, you got your cup, you got your ring. That's great. Move on from guys. The defense is terrible. The goaltending, at some point, Dave's friend Jordan Binnington's going to focus on goaltending and not hitting guys over the head and tripping them and all the other nonsense. And even Berube said he's got to stop that. It's a bad team, right? It's a bad defensive team. If you're a bad defensive team down the stretch, like Parankos, a -25. It just this team just isn't working together. So the high level guys like Tarasenko and like O'Reilly, they need to move. Like this generation of Blues championship is over. The window's closed. It's slammed shut. The moving ban should be there, and those guys should be moving on. And probably any other player that you want to talk about, other than maybe a Kyrou or a Robert Thomas.
Yeah, I mean, long run, I'm not ready to say the window slammed shut, because you have Kyrou and Thomas, and you've got some good young players, but they definitely need to retool. Like it's time to refurbish the lineup a little bit. So I definitely agree. Tarasenko, peace. And he said something over the weekend that caught a lot. I don't know if it caught a lot of attention, but it definitely caught some people's attention when he said, "Yeah, I realize that this could be my last year here, and I want to see what's going to happen over these next few weeks." He's got a full no trade. I got to wonder, has he submitted a new list of teams that he would accept a trade to? So that one caught a little bit of interest, but I'm with DB on St. Louis. Like, you want to re-sign Ryan O'Reilly for 2-3 years? All right, do it in July. Like, get your assets now. Move Barbashev, Mikola, Thomas Greiss, if you need to on the bet. Like, they have assets to move. Do it. Get them out of there. Retool in the summer and go from there. The other team, we all know Chicago. It's Taves, it's Kane, but it's also Domi, it's NSCU, it's Connor Murphy with term, it's McCabe with term. They have other people on this team that they could potentially move out as well. So I think Chicago is going to be active. Dark horse, and it depends on a lot of things here. But there is some interest, at least internally so far, and I've got to imagine they've reached out to Chicago in some respect. But Washington, keep them in mind for now with respect to Jonathan Taves. I was told this yesterday. I don't think it's going to come to fruition, and I have no idea if Taves would consider the Caps, but there is some consideration internally, at least, with respect to finding a way to get Jonathan Taves there. Again, I don't know if it's going to happen, but there are going to be teams in those situations that are going to look to some of these players to say, how can we potentially make something happen? The other concern for me is maybe something's wrong with Nick Backstrom. If that's the case, maybe it's extended a little bit longer. Maybe it's done for the season, back playoffs. I don't know. We'll see. But those are St. Louis, Chicago, Montreal would love to make a variety of different moves if they can. There's Joel Edmondson with term. There's Mike Hoffman with term. Dadonov and Drouin. We've got to figure out what the hell's wrong with Sean Monahan injury-wise. He comes back for a skate, doesn't skate for a couple days, but they've got a few pieces. Yoel Armia as well with I think 2 or 3 years left on his deal. So they have opportunities to get a little bit creative on their side. It's just a matter of finding, the right fits. And then you've got the Anaheim Ducks who should, move out a bunch of guys. Like the season hasn't.
You got to get back in the Conor Bedard race. Let's go. Come on.
You're right. Yeah, exactly. Carolina's running away with it. The Ducks got to get in that.
And there's one guy, Adam Henrique's had a great season.
Yep.
Like, he could, a veteran presence. I think he's like close to his career high in goals. He's had a great, nobody notes it because the team's bad and they play on the West Coast, but he could be a difference maker for a contending team. He's been that good for that team right there this season.
Yeah.
A lot of opportunity for teams to sell. I would argue it's a seller's market. A lot of people say buyer's market, but you've got teams scratching and clawing for position here and a lot of good rentals on the market. When was the last time we saw guys like Patrick Kane, Vladimir Tarasenko as rentals, as guys that are available for trade? Like, it is absolutely crazy. So I'm very interested to see who's aggressive. Going back to that Jonathan Taves fit, if Backstrom is indeed out, that's a good one too. He's still got game. He can win draws. He can kill penalties. He's got a good hockey mind and a leader more than anything. Like, that would be a rock solid leadership there in Washington if that were to happen.
And not only that, Zach, Kuznetsov has 7 goals this year. Like, he's had a bad season. Part of it's because Wilson's out and they've been all banged up. But you look at their center position. Strome's there right now. They're kind of de facto 1C. He's got 11 goals. Backy's got 1 goal in 10 games, and Kuzi's got 7 in 52. So if you think this team is a playoff team, and I don't know. It depends on what Florida does, what the Islanders do, and what Buffalo does. This team, by the time we get to next month, they could be in 10th place. So it's going to be interesting. But
Yeah.
Tage would fill a need because their center play isn't close to what's needed to get to the top 8 in the East.
Yeah, I'm curious to say. It caught me off guard yesterday when I was told that the Caps, at least internally, are discussing it. Again, I got to imagine Chicago's aware and Taves is aware because both him and Kane, they've got the list of teams that have interest. They'll cut that list down in the next couple of weeks here, like we've been saying, and then that last week of this month or whatnot, they'll try to figure something out here and see. Here are a couple options. It doesn't sound like it's going to be the Giroux route where it's like trade me to Florida but they managed to pull it off. So I think it's going to be, like I said, it's going to be interesting to see how Chicago maneuvers those guys. But I'm also looking at Domi and seeing where's there a fit for him. With some of the other options that are out there. San Jose, like you're right, there are a lot of sellers there right now, and the middle of the pack teams, even though they should concede. They don't want to do too much at the moment. So maybe that changes in the next couple of weeks. But because there's still runway, we're just over 3 weeks away from the deadline. So it's going to be interesting to see how, some of these teams maneuver. We know Philly wants to make some moves and not just the rental guys and Braun and JVR, but it's going to be interesting to see how some of those other teams kind of play out the market.
I don't know if they're going to do it, but David Paul, after watching his team last night at home get 6 shots on goal with 5 minutes into the third period, and I know there's rust, but that's a lot of rust. And to play that way, and I know Vegas played well, but to play that bad where you can get a sniff at the net, I might start looking at my lineup and saying, okay, maybe I need to inject something here. But they're a team on the outside looking in, so are they really a playoff team? And I think I always go back, Jack, to what Dean Lombardi told me years ago about the trade deadline. He goes, I want a sign from my team that they want help, that they need help, that they're in it to win it, but they just need they need something more. And when I watched Nashville play last night, I don't know if they're in it to win it. If I'm David, I would be careful to measure, do they really need help, or is this team just not good enough at this point? Because that was embarrassing last night. I like to not even get in the zone, get shot. And Vegas, yeah, they're fine, but that's one team that is on the outside looking in, could use help, but are they really that good? Or is it going to be a situation where you make one trade, you get to the 18, and you get wiped out in the first round in 4 or 5 games?
Yeah, Nashville, has been looking for offense for years. They've dished out some big contracts, Forsberg, Duchesne. Do they have enough? And, we're talking about a team that's in a really tough division too, DB. Like they've got some hills to climb here if they're going to make something happen. And even if they do get in, are they for real? They've got the goalie, they've got some solid defensemen, but how serious is Nashville? So there are a lot of teams, and with how quiet things have been overall with respect to Horvat, everything else, you got to think things are going to start happening here because we've only got a few weeks left. Things, teams are seeing these no trade lists, and players have to make some tough decisions. And Taves and Kane, like Dave said, so we will certainly see as we approach the deadline. Any final thoughts from either of you before we sign off here on episode 3?
Toronto, for example, I should touch on them. Like, I think they're going to make a couple different moves here, and I think it's going to be up. Like, and I've been saying this for a couple of weeks, Ivan Barbashev, if they can make that happen, I think he's at the top of their list in terms of guys they want to bring in. Cost effective because of the cap, and you're not going to be paying a premium for him because he's having an off year after putting up 60 points last year. So, and at the same time, it's not the same cost for an O'Reilly or Kane or Taves or those kind of big guys. So I could see a scenario where a Barbashev and Domi get inserted into the lineup in Toronto. It's under $6 million in total cap space. They're going to have to figure things out financially, but I could see a scenario play out where it's those kind of players that get inserted into this lineup rather than one of the big boys. Because you look at it, if you really want to, you can slot Barbashev on the left side of Tavares and Nylander, and then a guy like Domi, you can either slot on the wing or at center on your third line, and it deepens things out with Yarncrook and everybody. So I'm interested to see how this gets played out.
Yeah, for me, here in Los Angeles, I've joked that the fans that kept the candle in the window for Jacob Chicken for the last, what appears to be 10 years, you might want to put out that flame because I don't think it's going to happen here in LA. We mentioned Boston Imagine Jacob Chicken with Charlie McAvoy on the top line, on the top pair, right? That's it. But watch one development here in Los Angeles. That their forwards have been hurt. Like Trevor Moore's been out with a concussion. Arthur Callahan had a broken foot. He's coming back. But watch out for Gabe Velarde. Gabe got a lower body injury before the break. He's not skating yet, and he's their second leading goal scorer. Right? If this is a more serious injury, they might have to go get a score at the deadline. Now, we'll see if he plays on. I don't think he's going to play on Saturday against Pittsburgh, but that be a situation where Rob Blake may have to go. And they're winning games based on our offense this season, which has been, frankly, a shock to myself and probably the entire fan base that this is a really gifted offensive team. But Gabe was a vital force there. He was on the second power play. He's a different player this season. Right? He's finally got his confidence. He's having fun playing hockey. But if he's not in the lineup down the stretch, they might go get another scorer, hopefully on the wing. Even with guys like Moore and Kaliev coming back, that's a big loss if it's a longer-term absence for Gabe Velarde here in Los Angeles.
LA, for me, is a really interesting team to watch because you could argue they have to add a net, they have to add on the back end, they have to add up front, and you can't stay still because, given the position they're in and how intense their conference is and their division is, you got to do something if you're the Kings, and there are many opportunities to improve. Now, they've got the prospect pool and the space for Chychrun. You're saying that it's not the likely destination. To me, ideally, it makes the most sense in terms of a fit, but it obviously is a lot more complicated than that. And imagining him on Boston, like that would just be incredible because they're just a wagon right now. And to get another mobile defenseman like Chychrun with his term and his cap hit is frankly very, very scary for everybody else.
Like LA's not trading Byfield. I mean, not in a Jacob Chychrun deal. So
no,
last season they wanted Arizona wanted Velarde as a centerpiece, and LA's held firm, and well, it's worked out. So they're not moving Velarde. Would the Coyotes be willing to take an overall package that's like? I mean, I don't know. I didn't even know some of the other, Turcotte's not going to be your primary piece. It's got to be a package of a bunch of different assets.
And they're not trading Brant Clark. That would be the replacement.
Right, exactly.
Even though he's on the other side. And they're not trading Brant Clark or Byfield at this point. I just think they're going to look at other options. They might look at Provorov. They go get Gavrikov as a rental from Columbus. And with respect to the goal, Zach, people are saying trade for a goalie in Los Angeles. They have 3 healthy goalies. So what are you going to do? Put Phoenix Copley on waivers? Phoenix Copley has the same stats as Martin Jones. Like he's sub 900. His goals against is 2.9. He's 15-3-1. You're not waiving him. He'll get claimed. You're not waiving Jonathan Quick. I'm sorry. I know he's not been good, but he's got a couple months left in his Kings career probably. You're not going to waive him. The optics on that is awful. And even if you did waive him, nobody would claim him. And so then you would have Jonathan Quick and Cal Peterson playing in Ontario. It doesn't make any sense. So, and I don't even know if a guy like Cam Talbot is an improvement over Phoenix Copley. Phoenix Copley's winning games. So, look, they have to address goaltending because after the season, the only guy signed in LA is Cal Peterson, and that's not good. But in the moment for here, I just don't see it. There's other areas of need that we talked about. To go get a 4th goalie when 3 are healthy, you got to find a way to just win games with the 3 guys that you have right now.
That's why you improve your defense.
Bingo.
Right? So if they can pull it off, whether it's Gavrikov or Edmondson or whomever. Rob, go do it.
If they can get a lefty like a Mikey Anderson type, but kind of different on the depth chart,
more
right?
physical,
bigger. They have a small defense. They have a very small defense, and they found ways to win. But yeah, Mikey Anderson's been great, but they need a more physical play. Like the Bangor kid that got just traded to Seattle. Like he's 6'6", and he played on a top pair with Erik Karlsson. I get the halo if I could play with Karlsson. That would be the type of player that they play with more size to give some more size to that defense because it's a smallish defense.
Yeah, get somebody to play that second pair. Like I said, Gavrikov, I mean, like those caliber, those quality guys.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Edmondson brings the cup pedigree. Gavrikov brings the nastiness. Well, Joel does too, but still. Like those kinds of guys, I could see something like that being beneficial for that team.
Seems like there's always a market for those kind of defensemen, the guys who are rugged and really solid defenders. I know you guys might not have watched as much Jacob Magna, but this guy's a really good defender. There were a couple times where, especially last year, they had him one-on-one with McDavid. They had that matchup, and he was playing like a prime Marc-Edouard Vlasic. It was really impressive to watch. So, I feel like, we're talking about left-handed D like Edmondson and Gavrikov. Those guys are going to be highly coveted. They have to, because those are ultimately complementary pieces that could put you over the top. And with teams like LA that are missing that, you got to think that they're going to be going hard after that. So the Kings will be interesting to watch, at least in my opinion, just because they have so many opportunities to fill holes, and they're right there. They're right there with all these top West teams. So if they could make moves to push them over the top, we'll certainly see what the Kings can do. All right. Thank you, everybody, for watching episode 3 of Edgework. Make sure to comment, like, subscribe. If you want to let us know any dark horse teams that you want to see make some moves, whether it's buying or selling, you can let us know in the comments as well. So for David Pagnotta, Dennis Bernstein, I'm Zack Bodenstein, and we will see you next week.